Hello, and welcome to Chad and Wess Ruin a Movie. If you'd like to contact us, you can get us at chadandwess@gmail.com. If you like what you hear, you can also follow us on SoundCloud or subscribe on iTunes and leave us a review. If you'd like more information, go to chadandwess.com.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Chad and Wess Ruin a Movie. This is Wes.
It's our newest episode yet, and I'm Chad.
So new. It's so new, it's like we're doing it right now.
Anyway. Hi.
Hey, we just saw Suicide Squad!
What? Get out of town. You saw Suicide Squad?
I did. Did you see it?
Yeah, I totally saw it. Sat
Oh,
next
okay.
to this smelly guy.
Guy next to me smelled like farts. Probably because I farted in a seat before he sat down.
Anyway, so we are fresh off Suicide Squad, and we have literally talked less about this after the movie than we ever have. Like, we try to keep our conversations to a minimum after we see a movie, just to like keep the content fresh for the viewers.
We want it raw for you
the
guys.
listeners. But we usually at least have a few words like that are like general. Like this time we left the theater, we booked it here. I had everything set up when he got here, and like we started recording. So fresh content here, man.
Yep.
How'd you feel about the movie? Just general impressions.
Very, very positive. I have, I'll save ratings and things like that for the end, but an overwhelming positive feeling about the movie. Couple small gripes here and there, but for the most part, I really liked a lot of the stuff they did. Liked a lot of the actors. I liked a lot of the music. I liked a lot of the action. There's so many things that went right for me in this movie that I really enjoyed it. It was very different tonally than Batman v Superman or Man of Steel.
Sure.
But still, and maybe I'm getting ahead and we don't have to talk about this now, but still felt like it was firmly in that DC universe. Like it didn't feel grossly out of place.
Right.
Or it's like, oh my God, this feels like it's happening in a different universe or something.
Yeah. Well, and because we haven't said it yet, spoilers.
Spoilers!
Because we're going to talk about things that happen in the movie. We don't do spoiler free here at Chad and Wes. So, all right, cool. So I get what you're saying as far as feeling like it was definitely part of that continuum. Interesting, because I feel like we talked a lot about, like, so when does this happen in the timeline and stuff like that. Right at the beginning of the movie, they firmly establish where in the timeline this movie is taking place. And I even looked over at you at the theater, like, well, there you go.
There you go. There's an answer.
So it takes place, like, not directly, but at some point after the movies that have already come out. So after Man of Steel, obviously, and after Batman v Superman. Oh, hi, Wes. Hi, Oreo.
There's a dog.
I figured this might happen. Oreo, go on. Yeah, so special guest on the podcast today, my dog.
Now with more Oreos, but not the
I
kind I can
normally
eat.
have the door to this room shut, but I'm the only one home. Well, Wes and I are, and so I didn't want to shut him out of the room and have him howl or something in the background.
Well.
Anyway, hopefully that doesn't happen too much.
Yeah, so it happens seemingly almost right after Batman v Superman. I mean, I would say just the feeling, and they don't say explicitly, but a feeling like no more than a few weeks to maybe a couple months after. You've got street vendors, selling Remember Superman t-shirts and stuff like that. So I feel like everything's still very
And
fresh.
with America's attention span, that couldn't have been more than a couple days.
That's my point.
Yeah.
9/11 happened, and then by 9/15, we're all like, what?
What's next? No, so, okay, now, so to give my general impressions, not as hot on it as you are, I was still not negative about it. Like, I still enjoyed it. I feel like it had a really rough start for me. Like, the beginning of the movie was really hard for me to get into. It felt a little disjointed. Maybe we can get into the details of that. But by the end of the movie, I was really enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I'll give it that. Like, by the end of the movie, it had kind of turned a corner for me, and I wasn't feeling as, oh my gosh. Like, at the beginning of the movie, I was like, oh crap, this is gonna be bad.
So it's funny you mentioned that. Chad and I have been talking back and forth, and he's been giving me a hard time because I have a very hard time, one, staying off the internet, and two, staying away from anything that deals with content matter that I like, especially reviews and thoughts and things like that. I've tried my best to avoid spoilers, even though probably a week and a half ago, one thing got spoiled for me because they popped it in a headline and didn't bury the lead very much, but it wasn't a big one. But one of the things that the critics have been ripping this thing apart, I've seen a few times, is that the critics liked the first half of the movie, but did not like the second half of the movie.
Interesting.
And coming out of it, I think I agree with you that I think I probably enjoyed the second half of the movie more than the first half.
Interesting.
Elaborate, and then I'll share some of my thoughts.
Sure. So the movie starts off with a lot of ground to cover, and I feel like that's the trap a lot of movies are falling into, especially like the superhero genre and stuff like that. They're falling into this trap of, we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody knows what's going on. And I get it. Like, one of my complaints about Batman v Superman is there was a lot of things that like didn't make a ton of sense, some of which gets filled in with the Ultimate Edition that we now have both seen.
Yep.
But so they have all this ground to cover, and it's, I feel like, a really hard balancing act to play in a movie. How do we get enough information that things make sense, but not so much information that we have to just cram a ton of content in there and everything feels rushed scene to scene to scene, and it's kind of disjointed, and we're going to make it make sense by having a narrator talk over it, and she's presenting this to someone. It also felt really lopsided. I think we knew going into this was a story about Deadshot and Harley Quinn, and it was so obvious in the introduction to the characters, because they get this like nice long introduction that like shows all this stuff about them and their origins and their background and their motivations and stuff like that.
It's like 7 to 8 minutes a piece they get.
Right. And then it's like, oh yeah, and there's a Killer Croc guy too.
He's an alligator. That guy catches on fire. That guy's got boomerangs. All right, next.
And they did a little bit better, like eventually establishing some more stuff for Diablo. El Diablo, I guess, is his full name, but whatever. So they did they established some things for him throughout the movie, but it really felt, like, okay, we got to get all this stuff in here, and it just felt rushed at the beginning. This actually continued throughout the movie for me as something that I had an issue with. Of course, we're starting. Hey, my name is Chad, and I start off with all my issues with movies. Even though I did enjoy this movie, I can't stress enough. I liked this movie. It was enjoyable.
Go into your opportunity.
Yeah, my opportunity
feedback, and then we'll finish on. We're going to our positive.
Not a huge fan of Jared Leto's portrayal of the Joker.
All right, let's stop right here. Let's talk about Joker. Elaborate. What by portrayal you mean? Everything from visuals to delivery, or do you have certain things that you liked and didn't like?
I was willing, going into this, I was willing to get past the look of the Joker, because he felt very different. I get now why they did the look that they went with, because I feel like they went for this very like modern gangster, not like old school like Italian mob gangster, but like street level thug gangster look and feel and mannerisms and his gang and where he hangs out, and everything was that way. And it's not what I think of when I think of the Joker.
Yeah.
It's not how I like. It felt really strange to me. It's the direction they decided to go in. I wasn't a particularly big fan of that.
Yeah.
The weird thing with the smile on his hand felt really strange when he did that. Like his laugh was all right at times, but like everything about like the way he delivered it and some of the decisions they made for the character, I was not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And I was hoping, like, when I saw some of the stuff about him, I was like, okay, this could be cool. Like, this is a different take, but this could be cool. I don't understand why he's got all the tattoos all over his face and this, that, and the other, but whatever,
Yeah. When I think about this Joker, I kind of think about it 3 different ways. So there's the appearance, there's the interpretation, and then there's the delivery. I did not have a problem at all with the delivery. I thought Jared Leto did a great job of performing what I think he intended to perform. I liked a lot of the stuff that he did as far as like the laugh. I don't feel like we heard the laugh a whole lot, but when we did, I thought it was pretty good. I thought he had a really good range with like just the way he talked. It was not, he didn't talk the same way the whole movie. Sometimes it was, I don't even know the best way to describe it. He just changed his inflection. Sometimes he had a lower voice. Sometimes he had a higher voice.
I think what they were trying to show there was like the psychosis of him kind of going into the different elements of his personality.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to explain it. And then, so talk about the interpretation. I didn't necessarily have a lot of problems with that. Maybe a couple things here and there, and who knows what we would have gotten if he was, in more of the movie, or if it was a movie where he was the main villain or something like that. Who knows what we would have gotten. The appearance, I tried really hard to get past the appearance, and I think I could most of it, except for the teeth grill. I don't know why, but the teeth grill really, really bother me.
Yeah.
The tattoos and things like that, honestly, I didn't even notice that much. I don't know if I was just distracted by like his hair and his lips or something like that, but
his hair was fine. His lips were weird, I feel like. Most of the movie they were distracted.
Well, and I think maybe they looked weird because they had grills behind them, and I think
Yeah.
it made it look like they were almost a little more puffy than they normally are. So I didn't care for the grills. I was fine with a lot of the stuff. I like the costume changes that he had because we got to see him in the classic like black and white tuxedo. Yeah, and we saw him have a couple of other different outfits and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that was all fine. I didn't have a problem necessarily with the clothing, but just a couple of the visual things on his person. I didn't care for that much. But whatever. But like I said, the performance I thought was pretty good. I liked their use of the Joker in it. It's kind of one of those things like, well, how do you make a movie that the Joker's in, but he's not the main villain?
Right.
And it was kind of cool the way they did it because they used him both to establish Harley's origin, which we figured we would get judging by the trailers, but then also the fact that we've got this looming kind of presence in the background that the Suicide Squad doesn't know that's happening aside from Harley, but that the Joker's coming, and he's coming to get Harley. And so it's like, you don't know when he's going to pop up and this kind of stuff. And so I thought that was a smart use of him where he wasn't just part of the origin. He did fit into the narrative of the story as well, even though he was not a big part of it.
Right. It's also interesting, like, when we talk about the timeline of all of this, and we know that Batman, prior to Batman v Superman, has faced a Joker. We know from the comic books now, maybe it was a different Joker, because there's been 3, according to the comics. Okay. I don't know that they're going to get into all that, right?
I'm going to guess they probably aren't.
I know, but I'm just saying, that, like, he has faced him before. It seems like it was not super recent necessarily when he faced him in there. It seemed like, he has the Robin costume with the "Joke's on You" painted on it. Like, that just felt like it was from a while back. And remember, at this point, Batman had been operating for how long? 20 years?
20 years at the time of Batman v Superman.
So how long ago did he face the Jared Leto Joker?
Uh-huh.
Because the Jared Leto Joker seems significantly younger than Batman.
Right. And who knows, maybe he didn't come around until 10 years into his career as Batman. So that's some deviation there. And my guess is that they'll probably never really solidify that kind of stuff up. I think they'll probably just go full steam ahead at this point and just let whatever is be.
Well, obviously at the end, with him breaking Harley out, I feel like they're setting up the Batman standalone movie. That's gotta be what we're getting.
My wife and I were talking about it on the way out, and I would be very surprised if Joker, Harley, and Deadshot, all 3 don't come back either in the standalone Batman movie or somewhere else. One, because they invested a significant amount of time in them in this movie, but also they have invested financially a lot into these 3 actors. Mm-hmm. They've got 3 very, very big actors. It seems like it would be a waste to not use them in multiple movies if you're going to get them for this one. I want to talk a little bit more about the beginning, and then we'll move on from there. I agree that the beginning was kind of weird because they had to set up all of these characters and at least kind of give you a basis for for their characters and things like that going into it. And we've never met any of these characters before. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, because as we were going along kind of through the issues or whatever, how did you feel about whatever the actress's name is, portrayal of Harley Quinn throughout the entirety of the movie?
Yeah, I loved her portrayal of Harley.
Okay.
For me, she is probably the highlight of the movie, which I kind of expected a little bit, but especially after watching it, I really liked her portrayal of Harley.
Okay. I feel like once again, this is a thing that got better for me by the end, and I don't know if it's because it took that long for me to get used to her portrayal of it.
Yeah.
I feel like it was hit or miss. There were different scenes where I felt like she did a better job of it. Then there are certain scenes where I felt like I could tell she was playing a part. Yeah. Like, it didn't feel like I was watching Harley Quinn on the screen. It looked like I was watching an actress playing Harley Quinn and what she thought of as Harley Quinn. And she had done her research and seen the old animated series and the various other times Harley's been, out there. And she's like doing that thing, whatever. It felt like there were certain scenes where she nailed it, but then there were certain scenes where I felt like, I was like, oh, that doesn't feel as well delivered as some of the other scenes.
Yeah.
It was more towards the beginning of the movie than towards the end.
I didn't feel that with her. I liked her portrayal. God, it's hard to say. Her portrayal, pretty much throughout the entire movie for my part and for my opinion.
Yeah.
It's funny the way that you phrased that was how I thought of Deadshot. Deadshot was kind of like Will Smith playing Will Smith as Deadshot.
Oh no, I said that when we watched the trailers,
right.
and I feel like that was somewhat confirmed as like, what is different about Will Smith's delivery of Deadshot than any other time we've seen him deliver this kind of character? You know, the gunslinging tough guy with, you know, the attitude and the quick comebacks, and it just felt like, I mean, Tommy Lee Jones could have come out. It could have been a Men in Black movie. Yeah. You know, it could have been Wild Wild West.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing that changed for me is at the beginning of the movie, I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely Will Smith. He's not doing many things differently than he would in any other movie that he's in. But probably by the time I got to halfway through, I didn't have a problem with it. Like, I realized that that's probably fine. They probably allowed him to do that because that's why they cast Will Smith. They wanted the character to be like that. It's like, okay. And actually, I got used to it. And actually, I enjoyed it because he brought a lot of the humor to the movie. And actually ended up liking it. I will completely agree. He did not have to stretch very much to be that character because it's very similar to what he's done before.
Yeah.
But I liked his performance. I liked his delivery. And so I actually grew to like it as the movie went on.
I guess I'm willing to accept that, you know, they said, hey, Deadshot, we feel like he's a Will Smith type character. Let's get Will Smith to do this as Will Smith. Like, I can accept that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I wish they would have gone something a little bit more original with that. But, you know, that is definitely not, you know, a huge sin to me in this movie. I saw that coming from the trailers, and I like Will Smith in general. Like, most of the things I've ever seen him in, I've enjoyed him, and I've enjoyed the movies.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, let's move ahead to something else because I'm getting ready to talk about something. One quick thing. Flash cameo.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, unfortunately I did because that was the thing that got ruined for me in the freaking headline. But I mean that's a nice surprise there, and that's one of the reasons I think for me that it felt like it fit in that universe.
Sure,
I like the fact that, and I'll talk about their use of Batman as well. It felt very, very natural to them showing up, and it wasn't like them trying to be a part of the story. But it's one of those things like, you know, it's this universe. You would be walking down the street and possibly see Batman go overhead or something like that if he's on the way to get a bad guy or something like that.
Sure.
So it felt very natural, just how they would show up to stop the bad guy when they were doing something. And
how'd you feel about Deadshot getting the drop on Batman? He totally had him if his daughter hadn't gotten in the way. I feel like in the alleyway, he had the gun up. He never misses. Batman's got a big unprotected part of his cowl. Like, I feel like right there, he had the drop on Batman. I was like, oh, shit.
I wouldn't call that the drop because the drop would insinuate that Batman was not, like, looking at him. Like, he was, like, behind Batman or something. But, I mean...
He had him dead to rights. How about I put it that way so it fits into a vernacular? He easily could have killed Batman right then and there if the daughter hadn't stopped him.
Batman could have, like, thrown his hand up or something. It's Batman. Chad,
Batman's faster than the speeding bullet. No, that's the other guy, dude.
It's comic book movies. Nobody ever takes that shot or makes that shot. There's always time to react. It's just the way that this stuff works.
That's fine. I saw that in the scene. I was like, oh, damn. Like, they went, Will Smith can beat up Ben Affleck. Anyway, go ahead.
But I think that's cool that they have these things where they're showing like they're a part of this universe. Not only just Batman that we've seen so far, but also including the Flash as well. You know, I think it was smart that they didn't try to pigeonhole every superhero that we've seen so far into the movie.
Sure.
But it's this universe where these heroes exist, and especially since it's a big point of contention or conversation amongst everybody, it makes sense that they would show up. One interesting thing I thought they talked about is Boomerang was like, you know, this guy in a red suit showed up and stopped me, and they're like, oh, it's, you know, just some metahuman or whatever. Like he doesn't have a moniker yet. He's not famous enough to be known as the Flash.
Right. Well, and like the bit that we did see of him, like he's already got a pretty legit costume. Like,
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, he's thrown together some spandex and
Yeah.
stuff. It's not until he meets Bruce Wayne that he gets the money to bankroll a really good outfit.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, unless they try to do some backward stuff and be like, oh, he's already met Batman at that point, but with the timeline,
he was
it
in the
would not...
file, remember, that he got at the end of the movie?
Right.
He was in that file, so, like, apparently Batman hasn't met him yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, and so that was something I liked. Pacing stuff was kind of weird going from... I felt like we got Act 1 and then Act 3. Like, I don't feel like there was a whole lot of middle, because you had them, doing all this setup with getting the team together, and then all of a sudden the big end of the world event is going on, and they're going to stop that.
Yeah.
And obviously you could break that up and say, here's here's second act and here's third act.
Yeah.
But I just didn't feel like there was as much middle as there could have been to kind of tie everything together.
Right.
They went from, just being formed to now being a team and executing the plan, like no training together or, really much time meeting before they go out on their mission.
Right. I feel like, to me, if I were to break it into 3 acts, I would say kind of the establishment of the characters in the team. So,
Yep.
like, all of the backgrounds for the characters / kind of forming them up is 1. Part 2, to me, is like them going on the first part of the mission together.
Right.
Like them getting to know each other, going through the kind of the city and stuff like that, and battling some of the minions and stuff like that. And then Act 3 is the big final, bit against, and maybe it's a short act,
Right.
but
So,
is the kind of the big finale.
yeah. So like the
the
bar
end.
scene is kind of the in between
transition.
Act 2 and 3. Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, and I see that. And when I say, one act and
No,
Act
I
3,
see what you're saying, though. It definitely
Yeah.
feels like there's 2 big halves to the movie.
Right.
But if I were to say, okay, where would I see those breaks? That's where I'd put them.
Right. And so it didn't bother me that much. It was, like you talked about, the biggest problem with the movie, I feel like, is the fact they had to set up all these different characters and you don't know them. Luckily, they have the benefit of, like, not really explaining the Joker. They leveraged, and granted, that's a good thing. Joker doesn't really have a concrete backstory, so it doesn't really matter what you think of the Joker anyways. You just have to know that he's the Joker and that he's crazy. And if you get that much, well, then you're pretty much caught up, because that's what Batman knows too.
Right.
So it's fine they didn't have to really explain him, because that would have just been more set up and things like that. One thing for Harley, I feel like I might have appreciated a little bit more, is if they took, and this may have been a way to fix kind of the first part where they're doing the intros, is that they could have had these moments of flashbacks with them throughout the movie instead of cramming it all up front. And they did it one time with Harley, where she does kind of a flashback to when she falls in the vat of chemicals. And that got me thinking, like, what would this movie have been like if they would have used flashbacks? I'm like, why don't I call it a backflash? Flashbacks for especially Deadpool and Harley's origins, so that we...
Deadpool?
God dang it. Deadshot and Harley throughout the movie, instead of having them, have the big long scene up front, you could have had a quick scene like everyone else and then explain them more as you went along. But I don't know, it may have worked. It may have been terrible to do it that way. I'm sure it was a conversation that the movie makers had, and they didn't ask me about it. So
Those bastards.
jerks.
They'll see this podcast and they'll be like, "Oh man, we should have talked to Wes about that."
Let's bring him in. Let's get, and then we can go work on Justice League. Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah, we're just thinking of what that would be like.
we're done with this podcast. Now we're just gonna go daydream. All right, so that was kind of the beginning of the movie. I could also talk. I don't know if we ever did it on one of the reviews for the trailers, if we just had a private conversation.
Yep.
About kind of feeling that a lot of the other characters are just kind of they're not established much, but like. Killer Croc felt really one note. He got a couple lines in the movie. He had like that similar, like I told you, I think before, it was like every time I see him in the trailer, he does the same thing. It's kind of like it raises one side of his mouth. It's like he did that so many times throughout the movie. Like even in the background and stuff, I see him. It's like it must be a limitation of the prosthetics they have on his face. Like he just can't move his mouth and face that much.
Probably, but he did do a few other looks, because I was thinking, I was like, oh look, Chad's going to see that he can do more than just the sneer.
Yeah, I I don't really remember that.
Okay,
much.
great. Just for me then.
It was a more otherverse sneer. Anyway,
Yeah, they definitely had their A, B, and C characters on the squad.
yeah.
Deadshot.
Well, and so wait, hold on. This was a big time thought I had throughout the movie. As they were actually in the helicopter, I think is when I thought this. I was like looking at them, I'm like, okay, yeah, Killer Croc, super strong, can mutilate some people. We've got Deadshot, he never misses. We've got Boomerang, he's crafty, whatever. he also, is an expert with weapons. Like all these, I'm like, why is Harley Quinn in this group?
Yeah.
Why did they, other than for the story so that the Joker can come and save her, why would they have included her out of the options that they had in this group? They're like, because she's crazy. It's like, that's a reason not to include her.
I mean, I can guess that obviously they didn't explain it in the movie, but you saying that, me quickly trying to think of a reason.
Of a defense.
Well, I mean, you asked for a reason, and I mean, this is one possible reason.
It was rhetorical.
Since they didn't explain it, it could just be whatever, but it could be one of those things where like, oh, it'd be great to have the Joker if he was controllable because, he's a kind of a loose cannon that we could set on something. It's like, well, he's a little too crazy, but maybe if we've got Harley, maybe we can use her. She's not quite as out of control as he is.
Well, didn't they even say at one point that she's more dangerous than him or something like that? I thought that was a line in there at one point.
Maybe
they were comparing the two of them. Regardless, it felt like, okay, she's traditionally been part of the Suicide Squad in the comics and stuff like that. But as I'm just like looking at this group, I'm like, one of these things is not like the other.
I got a baseball bat.
Right?
Yeah. She is typically more lethal in like hand-to-hand combat than the Joker is. I mean, the Joker doesn't get his hands dirty a lot. That's why one of the reasons he has Harley and normally lots of thugs and things like that. So, but normally she's very acrobatic and pretty deadly in close range and things like that. So that I mean that could be, again, they don't really explain it. So I mean you're right. You've got lots of other people who have capabilities, like the one guy whose head got exploded. I forgot the
Captain had a head blow up.
God, what was his name? Slipknot.
Yep.
Which I don't really know much
He's
or
got a
anything
band,
about
I think.
him. That's right. He got to get back to his band. Whenever I saw one of the trailers, they have a line where they're talking about what will happen to the Suicide Squatters. Like, if you do this, you're dead. And when he says it, they show him like ziplining up or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I haven't seen him very much in these trailers. And the way they cut it, I wonder if they're trying to insinuate that he gets killed.
Yeah.
And as soon as they got to that scene and Boomerang and him starts trying to like escape, I was like, they're going to blow his head off.
Yep.
And sure enough, they did. And I was like, okay.
It's funny because like you have to establish that this is real. They are going to do it. They're willing to go that. So I was like, someone has to die. One of the Suicide Squad members, I think we even talked about this before, one of them has to die.
Yeah.
Like, it has to happen. And so, sure enough, that guy, I was having the same thought as we were kind of going up to that scene, especially once they started talking. I was like,
they're going to kill that guy.
There hasn't been much of him other than the couple scenes I've already seen him in from the trailers. I don't think this guy's surviving much longer. He definitely wasn't in that bar scene where they were all sharing a drink. Yep. That's what they should do. They should, like, to really squash spoilers, they should shoot trailers with people that die earlier in the movie. Like, they should, like, shoot the scenes and have them be there.
And just have them sit there.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, now we're
sure
going to shoot it once with him there. Yeah. And so then people don't know what's coming.
Yeah. To have him do one day, have him be in costume just all day long, and be like, all right, come get in the lineup, walk down the street. All right, cool. Now go sit in the bar, get a couple shots of that. Great. Do this one thing. Okay, cool. Now we'll make sure we put those in the trailer.
We're going to have you look like you're fighting the big bad guy at the end. All right. First scene, dead.
Yeah, but as long as their visual effects department isn't like Star Trek and they're like, oh, just pop him in there. That motorcycle. I was thinking about that again the other day.
Oh, gosh. So bad.
Oh, God. So let's talk about so the squad itself. We started talking a little bit about how there are definitely main characters of the squad and secondary characters to the squad. Killer Croc. I liked his characters because I was excited to see Killer Croc in a movie. I never thought I'd see a movie with Killer Croc in it.
I wish they had gotten someone that was a little bit bigger. Like, dude.
Oh yeah, he took his jacket off, and I'm like, oh
yeah, like gigantic head on the guy, and then it's kind of like normal athletic build body. I'm like, I would have expected them to have like hired someone like Batista or whatever, like from that, or someone that's like what's his name, the guy that did WWE and then went to mixed martial arts.
The Rock.
No.
I didn't. Listen to what you were
Gigantic
saying.
guy with the sword like tattoo on his chest.
know.
That dude is gigantic. Like
Yeah.
he would have been perfect. You throw the Killer Croc makeup on him, and he looks like what I think Killer Croc should look like.
Yeah.
To me, it was just kind of like a Killer Croc head on a little teenager's body. It just looks so misproportioned.
Yeah. I thought he. Aside
I'm gonna go look at a picture of the guy and be like, oh my god, he's huge.
I was thinking, I've seen him like in doing the press tour and stuff like that. He is a pretty big guy. I guess it's maybe just all the prosthetics made his head look bigger, which made his body look smaller.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever he took his jacket off, I was like, oh, look, aren't you cute? I like
He's been crawling into the water instead of just diving in. I was like, really?
he had to be like an alligator. I liked his makeup. Like I liked the look of him.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job with that, and he didn't have to do a whole lot in the movie, which was fine. Boomerang I thought was funny.
He was comic relief.
Yeah, he's comic relief, which is good. I mean, Jai Courtney has not typically been in a lot of things he's gotten a lot of accolades for, but he wasn't terrible in this. Slipknot was dead. Diablo,
ended up being really badass.
Yeah, did not.
I liked his character, man.
I liked his story.
Yeah, like it was nice to see a tortured guy that like he realized the error of his ways. He's like now kind of trying to be better. Like I thought of all the characters in this, he probably was the most well developed character.
Oh yeah,
Just like he had a lot of depth and dimension to him.
yeah. There were 2 times in the movie where totally did not expect this to happen, but got a little emotional. And one was the scene where they're in the bar and he's finally kind of telling them what he did to his family. And I thought for a second they were almost gonna I thought they were gonna go funny when Boomerang's like, what happened to your kids? And Harley was like, he killed them.
Yeah.
And like I thought, okay, well they're gonna make like a joke or something at this point, and they didn't. They kept it serious for just a little bit longer. And it's pretty emotional. And then another one, and I don't remember exactly where it fell, but just a scene with Deadshot and his daughter. Like I felt like there was some real emotional struggle there. And
earlier or later than that, like was it when he was getting to visit her? Was it his illusion of her?
I think it may have been whenever he was visiting her.
Okay, so
maybe
helping
at
her
the
with her
end.
math homework.
Yeah.
She's talking about triangulating a shot.
Yeah. So sad. But like I felt like there was a good connection there. Like you didn't see a whole lot of her and him together, but the time they spent, and again, this is I think probably the reason why they use Will Smith is because he does have a lot of emotional strengths when it comes to the acting.
Yeah, and I think Will Smith's a good actor.
Yeah,
I just don't think he had to stretch for this role.
Oh no, absolutely not. So yeah, I felt things for these characters that I would not have thought that I would have felt.
Yep.
And I thought the squad dynamic was really good. Like I thought they all had really good play off of one another. It had good back and forth and all that good stuff.
How about like, and this happens in all kinds of movies like this. I mean, it happens in probably every superhero movie at the very least, but most action movies. You've got the big bad guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The brother who's there just absolutely can decimate everyone he runs into, shoots his arm, whatever, just destroys them.
Yeah.
Nobody stands a chance. Now the Suicide Squad comes, and he can't hit shit. Like, seriously, he can't hit shit. He didn't take any of them out.
Yep.
And, like, I'm just like, that... It's a difficult thing that they do when they make the villain so powerful, and then it's like, well, how's anybody going to stand up to this guy unless they're on his power level? Now, when he got defeated, we obviously saw El Diablo was on his power level. Like he for lack of a better word, hulked out.
He Montezuma'd out. Like, whoa.
Got his revenge. But like, so that was cool to actually see that. But I was like, granted, they're not making progress. They're not really doing anything to him.
Right.
So they're not able to defeat
basically
him. But
jumping out of the way of his tentacle thingies.
Right. But like, how in the world is this? It just felt really weird, and like it was so obvious the difference in the way he's like. The only justification I could see for it was that basically Enchantress had said, "Make them kneel before me" or something like that. So it's like, was that the way of saying, "Don't kill them, toy with them, and make them surrender"?
Yeah.
Like, okay, it just. I don't know. It felt weird. Like, then why didn't, instead of going through them, go around them and grab them and pick them up? Because, other than Killer Croc, did any of them have super strength? No.
No.
So
yeah, just him.
Yeah. So that in that final scene, that was probably my biggest problem, was kind of the way that they treated him and like depowered him for that fight.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people complain about they felt like that they, and some people even likened it to Marvel movies where like it was a throwaway villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I mean, wasn't a whole lot of connection. Like, it's not a significant villain in the DC universe, but it's somebody that they were able to use that had a huge, power set. How are we going to stop them?
Right.
Where there, was a real threat. And I was thinking about it while they were doing the hand-to-hand combat at the end. It's like, yeah, you've got 6 or 7 other people fighting one person and barely holding their own. So I mean, that kind of shows the Enchantress' strength or whatever.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts about her and being the villain?
I mean, I called it a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
I don't. At the time, I hadn't seen if anybody else, and of course, because I don't pay attention to these things, I'm guessing maybe other people were saying that from some point, saying, "Oh, Enchantress is probably the villain," and stuff like that. But I just, from watching the trailers, was like, "Wait a minute, she's never with them." And at the beginning, I was like, "Oh shit, I was wrong. She's part of the squad. Like it looks like she's actually part of the team." And it's like, "Oh no, she's gonna go bad." That's what happens.
Yeah,
and that's what did happen. So I was fine with it. Watching her do her little dance seance summoning whatever thing she was doing felt a little weird. And it's
at the end,
I don't know how you can take it serious and make it look good.
Yeah.
But like watching her like do her little gyrations and stuff, I was just kind of like, oh, that I feel really awkward watching.
She
this.
wiggling around. What's she doing?
It's like cringe-worthy stuff going on here. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know how. What are you gonna do to make this look legit and not weird? Because we're talking about fantastical stuff that doesn't exist, and she's casting a spell.
Right.
Like, the only other option would be stand there and look like you're concentrating. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that only gets so exciting.
Right.
I talked a little bit about Harley. I think that was my favorite casting and performance in the movie. But my second favorite was Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. Like, I feel like she nailed that as exactly what I would have expected from somebody playing Amanda Waller. I didn't ever really feel like it was too over the top. It's just very like quiet. Like, I will just shoot you if I have a problem with you.
Right.
Like those people in that room that she killed.
Jeez Louise.
And again, for her, I think she's won an Oscar, but I expected it from her, but I'm glad that she delivered and that she didn't like phone it in. She looks like she took it seriously.
Yeah.
That's a big character for the DC universe, and I hope they even bring her back for some more stuff.
Yeah, no, I liked her performance. I don't know anything about her, about that character, so I didn't have a preconceived notion of it, but I got who she was. She is the character that you see a lot in like the Bourne movies that we saw recently, where you've got this CIA person that is so used to throwing away assets that they have no problem with someone dying or themselves killing someone if they think it's in the best interest of whatever it is they're trying to do at the time. And that's who she was, and I got that right off the bat.
In just some quick background, in the DC universe, she typically has been involved with the Suicide Squad and is kind of their handler, so to speak. When Lex Luthor was president, she was the vice president. She's been involved in all kinds of like stuff that's really, really sketchy, and she always says it's to protect the country and that kind of stuff, but it's like super evil at the end of the day.
Lex Luthor being president, huh?
Yep.
Anyway, this feels art imitating life.
Or actually, in this case, it's life imitating art, because that happened a long time ago.
I know, I'm joking.
But and also, she's one of the few people to know Batman's identity.
Which she revealed here in the movie.
Yeah. It's funny because the mid-credit scene is you see her sitting at a table talking to somebody, kind of from behind, and she's talking about blah, 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 Mr. Wayne, and then it, flips around and it's Ben Affleck sitting there. And at first it's like she's toying with him, like, oh, why do you need these files? And he's like, oh, just, doing some...
I like to make friends.
I need friends.
I'm lonely.
My last friend died. We were friends for 30 seconds.
I have this one friend, Jason Bourne, and he went away. He used to wear a little outfit. Anyway, never mind. Jason Bourne is Robin. Hashtag Jason Bourne is Robin.
Robin Bourne. But then towards the end, she was like, you know what? You should probably stop working so late. And it's like, as soon as she said that, I was working nights. And I was like, okay, as soon as she said that, I was like, yeah, she knows.
Yeah. Well, and I would figure with her and the amount of knowledge and the covert stuff, I mean, shoot, if freaking Lex Jr. knew, why wouldn't she know also?
Right. And it's because in the animated series, she shows up a few times. They've got some good back and forth. There's one time where he needs something from her, and she's like trying to get out of the shower, and she's like reaching for her towel, and she can't find it. And then you see like a gauntleted glove come out and hold out the towel. Batman's just standing in the middle of her bathroom waiting for her to get out of the shower like a creeper.
Been peeking on you.
Except in the comic, she weighs like 300 pounds.
Right.
Yeah, so I thought that was good. Trying to think about what else.
Why don't we do ratings?
Yeah, ratings.
You first.
I was going to say, do you need me to go first? I'm prepared.
I do. How many are we doing again?
Oh, God.
Are we 10? Are we still 10?
Yeah, we're still on 10.
Okay.
I could use 20, but I'll stick to 10.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go 7 out of 10 on this one. Oh, there's one other thing I want to talk about, and we'll talk about it after we do ratings. 7 out of 10.
Dang it, we don't have my cheat sheet pulled up.
I know. I can probably remind you, but
it's okay. I don't need it.
Whenever we originally did the Batman v Superman deal, I ended up giving it a 9 out of 10. I am now retconning that and knocking it down to an 8 out of 10. That I've had more time to think about it, and I've seen it a few more times. I'll go 8.5 for the ultimate cut. but
that's only because you get to see Bat Butt.
That's right.
You just pause it.
The one thing that's missing.
Wearing out your DVD.
Wearing out my digital copy. Apple sent me an email instead of wearing the servers out. So I'm settling on 8 out of 10 for Batman v Superman, and I really like this movie. I liked it a hair less than Batman v Superman, and I probably had the same amount of issues with it. And I appreciated the humor in it. I thought it was very different, and it was good to have. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if I have to sit down and watch one of them, I want to watch Batman v Superman. Has partially to do with the heroes that are involved, because I like Batman and I like Superman.
Sure.
But I just like so many things in that movie that spoke to me as a fan, and as a fan both of movies and of comics and superheroes and things like that. And I thought this one did a really great job as well. But to me, I think like some of the pacing and editing, things like that, got a little too choppy, a little choppier than I felt like it did in Batman v Superman, or just the process of making the movie got in the way just a little bit. Right. And it was a little distracting a couple of times. Cool.
I know that I was one under you, so I was 8 out of 10, I think, on Batman v Superman, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you
originally.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember what I was on X-Men Apocalypse?
You were 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to agree with you. 7 out of 10 for this. Good. I enjoyed it. Had its issues. I did like Batman v Superman better than this. Mm-hmm. And I just watched it again. I just watched the Ultimate Edition yesterday. And so it, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm still hopeful, like that they're going to do good. I still would say if I line these 3 now movies, right?
Yeah.
Up against the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, obviously they have an unfair advantage because they have so many more movies that have been out. But I definitely would, if given the choice, I'd still probably want to watch a Marvel movie over a DC movie. And part of that's personal bias, but part of it, I feel like, yes, they've had some stinkers in there, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But for the most part, I've enjoyed those movies better. And I think if anything, I feel like they've rushed less, and I still feel like they're falling into a trap. At least the last 2 movies, mm-hmm. I don't feel like they did. Maybe they did with Man of Steel. I'll have to think about that some more. But with Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, I feel like they're at least at points in the movie there was too much rushing going on. They were trying to do too much with the time they had. They either needed to decide, okay, we don't need to do this much in this movie. We need to slow it down somehow. And that's probably my biggest problem with it, aside from like the Joker and some of the spotty performance stuff, hit or miss stuff that I thought with the performance. Still really enjoyable movie. I liked it a lot. I've heard that it's been getting bad reviews and stuff like that.
God,
someone was trying to talk to me about it last night. I was like, don't talk to me. I haven't seen it yet. I don't even want to know what people are saying about it non-spoiler wise.
Yeah.
But I've heard that it's been getting some bad reviews. I don't think it deserves that.
No. So it's Batman v Superman, I think, ended up at like 26% on Rotten Tomatoes with critics. It was closer to 70% with fans. I haven't really checked on this one much today, but it got up to about 39% the other day, and then has been going down a little bit each day. And I think I saw a headline saying that it's down now about to where Batman v Superman is, so around the 30% mark. And I was thinking about it. I was like, I can't understand like that movie, even if you took the things that we had issues with, and it really bothered somebody that much more. Like, how does it knock it down that far where they're basically saying this movie is almost unwatchable? Like, there's no fun, you can't enjoy it, and it's just such a mess.
So I think the difference you have between critics, like professional movie critics,
right,
and your average person out there, which is the the other score that typically is higher, right?
Yeah.
Movie critics do come at viewing these things from a different angle, like even than what we do, and I think we can be more critical than your average fan on certain things.
Yeah.
But they come at it, and like I remember the other day watching something about Batman v Superman where they came at it from a completely different angle, from film theory type stuff.
Right.
And their problems with it were all about kind of those things, which I never think about. Hardly at all. Like the closest I get to film theory stuff is when I feel like the pacing's off, but I usually can't put my finger on exactly why.
Yeah, it's just a feeling you get of.
Yeah. So I feel like that maybe is what we're seeing is these movies are made for the fans, and that's why it does well on the fan side.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the critics, they're like, well, sure, it had Batman and Superman in it, and it had these, iconic things that we've seen in the comics and we've always wanted to see on film, but that didn't make up for the fact that, story-wise, that it was missing a lot of things, or the way that they shot it, or all these other things that I don't typically pay attention to.
Right.
I bet that's what... at least that's what I think is probably happening.
Yeah.
I don't read the reviews, so I don't know what they're saying.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. And honestly, it just pisses me off a lot, as it does. And like I said, I had problems with this movie. I did not give it a perfect score, and I still had some issues. But at the end of the day, I come away from a movie and I think, okay, did I enjoy it? Yes. Like, that was absolutely worth my $16 that I spent to go see this movie. Would I see it again? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm going to see it again tomorrow night.
Well, and I was going to say, I think that we'll probably see it again this weekend if my friend from out of town ends up wanting to go see this. I think we'll go for another viewing.
If he hasn't seen it, we'll take him.
Yeah.
And then I go into, what are the things that I liked? Did I like the story? Did it hit any certain beats for me emotionally, or humor, things like that? And I start to think about that kind of stuff. And yes, I have positive to say about all that. And yes, there were some things that I would have done differently. The introduction of, oh my God, what's wrong with my face? Introduction.
That's a new word. Hashtag introduction.
But the introduction of Katana, I think they could have tweaked just a little bit to make it be a little bit more natural.
Yeah, and I didn't get her motivation. We could go on and on, but we need to wrap this up.
Right.
But yeah, I think that Katana was very, of all of them, was tacked on.
Yeah.
I mean, she was even tacked on, everybody's on the plane and she jumps on the helicopter last minute. I'm like,
that was her first appearance, and I think they could have added 5 more seconds ahead of it of just Rick Flag saying, to Amanda Waller, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need somebody watching my back. You know what? I think I might know somebody, or something like that. And just leave it that, and who does he know?
That probably would have handled it.
And then boom, it would have automatically notched that up a couple of notches. But so like I said, a few things that I did not care for, I would have done differently. But that's fine. At the end of the day, it's an overall feeling for me, and I felt very positive coming away from it. My wife really liked it. It seemed like the couple of people I felt in the theater, it seemed like they were
the couple of people you felt in the theater.
I
wasn't one of them, apparently. Thanks.
You have your own special feeling time, but it seemed like the audience liked it for the most part. Some laughs and that kind of stuff. So, if you haven't seen it yet and you just sat through all this and let us ruin it for you,
shame on you.
Yeah, shame on you for doing that, because we probably ruined the crap out of it, which is the whole point of this podcast. But go see it; it's worth your money.
Maybe go see a matinee if you're nervous about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see movies for cheaper these days. They're not always going to be $15.
Yeah. My plea to the listeners out there, or the viewers out there, is don't let critics make your decisions for you, because I think they've proven, not just with these DC films, but also with other films, that they make decisions and criticize things a little bit differently than the average viewer does. maybe listen to the viewers that are going to see it. If everyone that sees it hates it, then fine, whatever. But when you have the majority of people, Batman v Superman, like the movie, don't let a critic ruin it for you. Go vote with your dollar, support these movies if you enjoy them, so that way we get more of them and they get better and better.
Yep. Cool. Well, on that note, I'm going to say bye-bye.
Bye-bye!
This has been Chad and Wes Ruin a Movie. Don't forget you can email us at chadandwes@gmail.com or visit our website at chadandwes.com. Follow us on SoundCloud and subscribe on iTunes if you like. You can also leave us a review. See you next time.